Hey guys, and welcome back to another Conan Exiles video. Today we're in the Highlands in map square E10, building a Black Ice Stronghold. The requirements for this build are on screen now. This is indeed a speed build. It's mod free and you can do this design with basically any material pack. So without further ado, let's get started. As this is a speed build, we'll be talking through the inspirations and ideas behind this build, alongside any difficulties or struggles throughout construction. Therefore, I think it's best to begin with where I first got the idea for this build. With the dungeon set first being released at the launch of the Age of War, I knew I wanted to incorporate the set into a more spacious build that people could use for their own designs in preparation for the Age of War Chapter 2 and the Purge revamp. I was also kind of debating on waiting until the Aesir walls drop, but I eventually decided to just make a build with the dungeon set, and then I can make a second build when those walls are released. I'm putting this video together on the 4th of July, happy American Independence Day to the American viewers, and as of yet, those Aesir walls haven't dropped yet, but I'll be doing another, much larger build when they do come out. If they're already out when you're watching this video, then I am already working on a build with them. So the main idea coming into this build was to create a stronghold that had enough space for workbenches, living spaces, and most importantly a dungeon containing the treasure hoard. However, I really wanted to avoid the usual tropes I fall into when I'm building castles like this by choosing a build location in which I was somewhat limited by the environment. I'll be the first to admit, a lot of my castles and similar designs end up very asymmetrical, so this plateau I'm building on kind of forces me to build in a bit more of an ordered style, and thus I was able to create a pretty nice symmetrical design. That being said, during the construction process there were a few mistakes. There was one in particular where I'd kind of misaligned one side of the base plate. Fortunately it was just me being terrible at maths yet again and miscalculating the tiles on one of the sides, so I just needed to shave the wedge section off and add an extra tile between them. This stronghold features a front walkway, a raised entrance area and a spacious interior, including workshops on the ground floor, a dungeon at the core that would be difficult to attack, and rear towers that end up being a little more decorative than intended. Coming into this build I was very cognizant of the fact that I never really use Black Ice all too often. It's probably fallen into my bottom 4 or 5 in terms of materials I use. I will occasionally use it for accenting, but I don't think it's been the primary material in one of my builds for a good while. That being said, I actually do really like Black Ice, so I wanted to change that, and thus this build uses primarily Black Ice with smaller accents of Stormglass. I'm very aware that, left to my own devices, I would almost exclusively build in either Arena, Numidian or Stormglass, so I'm trying to wean myself away from those three and work with some of the other materials that I don't usually use every day. Looking back at this design after it was completed, I think there are definitely a few things I could have improved on. I went for a centralised entrance point on the first floor, but I think that perhaps a smaller side entrance would have helped the design to flow a bit better, as this build is very heavily based around common intersection points on the interior. I also think that Gatehouse could have served this build well and helped to offer a slight defensive edge. As it is, the environment means there's only really one viable path to reach this stronghold, which is a massive positive, but a gatehouse to cut off that path would have made it much easier to defend. Additionally, on that topic of improvements, I probably should have played around a bit with the dungeon set a little more before going into this build. Given it did all work out perfectly in the end, but there were definitely some quirks with this set I wasn't quite expecting. I think in my review I may have characterised the set as quite simple to use, which for the most part it is, but if you're trying to do more complex things then it does become a bit more difficult. That being said, I did pick up on a few cool techniques you can use with the dungeon set that I learned during this build, namely wall shelving, which I used in the dungeon, and it works very well. Seeing as I'll be doing another fortress build in the near future when the Aesir walls come out, I'm going to be doing a bit of experimentation in the meantime to try and work out unusual ways that the dungeon set can work. As many others have said, because it's foundations it can be very restrictive, but when there is a will, there is a way, and I'm sure I can get something unique to work. So I think that just about covers everything for this build. As with previous speed builds, I'll let the rest of the construction phase run, and then we'll take a cinematic look through the finished and decorated build, though you can of course skip forward to that final result using the chapters found in the playbar. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss all the future content, including update news, building, lore, and plenty more. With that being said, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of the build.